Hey everybody, I'm Brandon Parnes, and this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe Project. I'm gonna watch all the films in the MCU and take you through each of them in this weird variety show type of thingy. Today, we're gonna talk about the first installment, 2008's Iron Man. We're gonna kick it off by briefly going over the plot in our first segment, appropriately titled The Brief. So Tony Stark gets gravely injured in an ambush in Afghanistan, gets held captive by a terrorist group, and is saved by another one of their captives, Yinsen, who together they build the arc reactor, which helps keep Tony alive. Tony works with a guy who he and his father knew named Obadiah Stane, who, after Tony decides to suspend Stark Industries from making weapons, begins to become the film's villain by first slowly pushing Tony away from the company. Tony builds a powered exoskeleton suit and goes to a war zone nearby where he was held in captivity and saves locals from an attack, and thus the journey of Iron Man begins. Now that we know what the film's about, time to take a look at the characters and the actors who play them in a segment called Characters Welcome. Characters Welcome. The film's protagonist, Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is played by Robert Downey Jr. Tony is a cocky, womanizing, yet brilliantly gifted billionaire who creates the arc reactor and the eventual Iron Man suit after a near-death experience. I think Tony is a little misunderstood, even though he lays it all out for people to see. I think sometimes people don't give him the credit that he deserves. James Rhodey Rhodes is played by Terrence Howard. Rhodey is Tony's friend and confidant who is a liaison between Stark Industries and the United States Air Force. I think Rhodey is also kind of acts as Tony's moral compass sometimes when he doesn't know the best thing to do himself. The film's villain, Obadiah Stane, is played by the great Jeff Bridges. He's a friend and colleague of Tony's and his father's, who is number 2 at Stark Industries, who also becomes the film's villain by, among other things, working with the terrorist group, the Ten Rings, to capture Tony. Obadiah is just a bad dude. Pepper Potts is played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Pepper is Tony's assistant who struggles with Tony's antics. She's been working for him for a long time and even is referred to by Leslie Bibb's character as the famous Pepper Potts. With Tony Stark being who he is, he's gonna piss some people off, which leads us to a segment I call, Who Did Tony Stark Piss Off This Time? So first he pissed off Obadiah Stane by suspending Stark Industries from making weapons. Doing that right there eventually triggered what really became the villain, even though he was definitely a bad dude way before it. Throughout the film, Tony constantly pisses off Rhodes by just making poor decisions. But obviously, they've been friends for a long time and they know how to make up after maybe some bad decision making on Tony's part. The Ten Rings. Where do I start with this one? Marvel creator Stan Lee is known for his famous cameos in Marvel films, so we're going to take a look at what's Stan Lee up to. At a gala, Stan is on the red carpet wearing a smoking jacket and surrounded by women. Tony passes him by and mistakes him for Hugh Hefner. I think this was a great use of Stan. He's there for just a quick second. If you see him, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's a great little Easter egg for the Marvel fans. Now is the part of the show where I tell you what I like about the film in a segment aptly named, That's What I Like. That's what I like. That's what I like. I really enjoyed Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. I think this was his big comeback that he needed. Even though he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Shane Black in 2005, I feel like this really brought him back into the limelight in a great role that really suited him. I also really like Jeff Bridges' underrated performance as Obadiah Stane. It always makes me giggle a little bit when I remember Jeff Bridges was in a Marvel movie, but when I watch it, he just knocks it out of the park. Conversely, now it's time for me to tell you what I didn't like about the film in a segment I call Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way. To be honest, there wasn't many things I didn't like about the film. Having said that, I didn't like the prolonged time that passed before we see the first real, slimmer, all-chrome Iron Man suit. I feel like if we got to that maybe 20-30 minutes in, it would have picked up the pace and give us a little more time to explore Tony in the suit. But, yet again, I don't write movies. In this part of the show, I'm going to tell you about my favorite action sequence in the film in this segment called Did You See That? I mentioned this scene before, but my favorite was when Iron Man goes back to the war zone, saves the locals from the attack by the Ten Rings, and it's the way he just kills everybody basically, is so Tony Stark, so Iron Man, so Robert Downey Jr. Very slick and quick and beautiful, really. Kids, I'm not condoning violence. Marvel is known for their after credits scenes, so we're going to talk about them in... But wait, there's more! In Iron Man, Nick Fury ambushes Tony in his house about the Avengers Initiative. I think this is a great way to bring Samuel L. Jackson into the Marvel Universe. As you know, or may not know, in the Marvel Ultimate series of the comics, they drew Nick Fury, who was previously a white guy and was even played by David Hasselhoff in a TV film. They drew him to look like Samuel L. Jackson, and when Samuel L. Jackson got wind of it, he went to Marvel, or Marvel went to him. Somehow they connected and said, I gotta play him if you make any movies, and boom, here he is. The time has come for the verdict.
The verdict.
I'm giving the film 8 out of 10 arc reactors. I thought it kicked off the MCU in spectacular style, and while it isn't the best MCU film, it's definitely up there. Junket time! Time for my plugs. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon Parnes. You can follow me on Instagram at Brandon_Parnes. You can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/theofficialBrandonParnes. And you can visit my website, brandonparnes.com. And of course, subscribe here on YouTube. Thanks for joining me on the first episode of the Marvel Cinematic Universe project. I'll see you next time with The Incredible Hulk.